And they all understand what Canadians get, is that this country should be the richest in the world. But after the lost Liberal decade, we've had the poorest growth in all of the G7. The American economy has grown 14 times faster per capita than the Canadian economy has in the same decade. And that, I think, explains why Donald Trump keeps endorsing Mark Carney. He keeps giving Carney support. He said he wants to keep Carney in power after the election. And it's pretty easy to understand why. Carney's policies, which he implemented as Trudeau's economic advisor, have made our economy more weak and reliant on the Americans than ever before. He supported massive carbon taxes while he moved his money out of the country to avoid paying them. He testified against the Northern Gateway pipeline while advising Trudeau against the Energy East pipeline. He supported the anti-pipeline law C-69, the energy cap, and countless other anti-development policies. All of these policy decisions have made us hopelessly reliant on the Americans. And despite making sort of rhetorical hints to the contrary 28 days before the election, Mr. Carney is actually doubling down on all of these radical, keep-it-in-the-ground policies that he has supported for the last 10 years of the lost Liberal decade. Here's the reality. We export 98% of our crude oil to the United States, moving from, in fact, the oil that goes from Western Canada to Ontario and Quebec actually has to go through the U.S., meaning Donald Trump has the legal power and the territorial control already to stop Canadian energy from going to Canadian consumers. We sell twice as much goods and services to the Americans as we sell between our provinces because the Liberals will not let us build the infrastructure to move it east-west. And between 2015 and 2020, the Liberals killed $176 billion of known projects that would have boosted our economic independence against the Americans. And that does not include the countless other projects that never appeared because investors took a look at Canada's anti-energy regime and said, we're not even going to bother announcing a plan to invest. These radical Liberal policies that caused the lost Liberal decade drove wages down, taxes up, and everything more expensive. It's no surprise that Canada now ranks 23rd on the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business survey. That's up seven places worse than before. And now Mr. Carney wants the Liberals to get a fourth term while promising the same radical keep-it-in-the-ground policies. And by the way, on that, let me be clear. When I say he has a keep-it-in-the-ground policy, that is not my characterization of his position. I'm going to quote him verbatim. This is not Justin Trudeau or Stephen Guilbeault. This is Mark Carney. Maybe as much as half of oil reserves, proven oil reserves, need to stay in the ground. You hear that? He wants to keep it in the ground, and that includes under the ocean floor. That means that he will not allow any offshore development here in Newfoundland. To keep it in the ground, he would have to block any further projects from going ahead. That means that our single biggest and most valuable resource would not be available to us while the Americans unleash massive production increases and while Mr. Carney's own company profits off petroleum investments outside of Canada. He will shut down competition to his company here in this country. We need to bring dollars and jobs home so that we can be strong enough to stand up to Donald Trump. Carney has the wrong plan, and our blessed country needs a new leader and a new change so that we can reverse course. If Mr. Carney is serious about restoring economic independence, though, because he's now sort of hinting rhetorically that he might consider doing something, he might consider abandoning his principles on the matter of energy. But if he is, let's get specific. Let's get very specific. The energy companies themselves, the 14 biggest of them, wrote all of us a letter. Every national leader, Conservative, Liberal, NDP, Green Bloc, wrote us all a letter with 5 demands. They said, either you do these 5 things or we will not be able to grow and break our dependence on the Americans. They're very specific. One, repeal the no new pipelines law and the tanker ban so that we can ship our resources to non-American markets. I voted against C-69. I have always been against C-69. I've said I will repeal C-69, the no new pipelines liberal law, within 60 days of becoming Prime Minister. Mark Carney supported C-69, and he had a week after he became leader to recall Parliament to repeal it, as I demanded, but he did not. So their position is clear. Second, it now takes, after the lost Liberal decade, it now takes 17 years to get a mine approved, while other countries do it in mere months. We can protect our environment and our population, but do it quickly. Why does it take, what do you learn in year 16 that you couldn't have learned in the 4th month of a review? That's why I have announced I am committed to the Build Canada demand to reduce wait times for permits to 6 months. Mr. Carney continues to support the reckless bureaucratic regime that takes many years and even decades. So again, on that front, the decision is very clear. Next, the cap. The Liberals have imposed an energy cap. This will prevent our industry from growing and even force it to shrink in size, because the policy is to reduce the output of the industry. I have said I oppose the energy cap. Just last week, Mr. Carney and his environment minister said they will keep it in place. So again, the choice is clear. After a lost Liberal decade, do you want to keep in place an energy cap by electing the Liberals to a 4th term, or do you want to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will scrap the cap? And then we have the carbon tax, the famous carbon tax. You know, up until about 2 months ago, the Liberals said that if we didn't have a carbon tax, the whole planet would be lit aflame. They said that you needed to pay more as a single mom to drive your kids to school, while Mark Carney flies around on private jets burning fuel like it's going out of style. And now, after having this tax in place for 7 years and keeping the carbon tax law on the books as we speak, what they now say is that they're going to hide the tax from the pump for 28 days leading up to the election, in the hopes that people will forgive and forget, re-elect them, after which they will use the carbon tax law to reinstate the full tax at a higher rate with no rebate whatsoever. Canadians are not stupid. They won't be fooled. Furthermore, Mr. Carney says he wants a bigger industrial carbon tax on steel, aluminum, potash, natural gas, cement, concrete, and other heavy industries, all of which are necessary. This roof would fall in without those basic materials. If you tax the industrial backbone of the country, you tax every single person who lives in a modern economy. That tax increase will drive jobs away. This is another area where Trump and Carney agree. They both want to tax Canadian industry. Carney with a carbon tax, Trump with a tariff. I want neither. And that's why the choice in this election is whether you elect the Liberals to a 4th Liberal term after the lost Liberal decade, who will bring in a bigger industrial carbon tax, or whether you want to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe the tax for everyone, for everything, for good, for real, for a change. And then you've got Indigenous loan guarantees. Our First Nations friends want to build prosperity for their people. They want schools and hospitals. They want clean drinking water. And they want the ability to fund it with own source revenue by having investments in resource projects that will send their economies into liftoff. I want Indigenous people to be the richest people in the world. But that means allowing them the loan guarantees to get their investments into these projects from the start. Now the Liberals want to control the loan guarantees through bureaucracy. We want to give control to First Nations so that they can make these investments and we can get quicker to yes. We will also allow First Nations governments to collect a share of federal income tax, corporate income tax, from the companies that harvest resources on their land. The Liberals will do no such thing. So again, the choice is, after the lost Liberal decade, do we want to elect them to a fourth term where they block resources for First Nations, or whether we want to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will unlock the power of First Nations workers and investment in our resource sector. So again, here we have it. Let me just stand over here so everyone can see this. Here we have it, folks. These are all the demands. These are all the demands that our energy sector has made. These are not my demands. These demands come from the 14 biggest energy companies in Canada. They're the ones that put a letter together, and they said very clearly and very simply, it's not a matter of debate. Either you do these 5 things, or we will stay dependent on the Americans. There is no way to build pipelines, LNG plants, to harvest our resources unless we do these 5 things. Mr. Carney, he has made some vague mutterings about how he might be inclined to change his position that he took over the last decade. But it's time for him to get specific. Will he reverse himself on the Liberal no new pipelines law and tanker ban, the Liberal delays on project approvals, the Liberal cap on our energy, the Liberal industrial carbon tax, the Liberal patronizing approach to our First Nations? I ask you to pose that question to him directly. And if his answer is anything but yes, then if he's not willing to say that he's abandoning all of his principles and his policies, then you can be very sure that under a 4th Liberal term, our energy sector will continue to be crushed and the Americans will continue to win our money, our jobs, our energy at huge discounts. It is no wonder that Donald Trump is so determined to see Mark Carney stay in power. Mark Carney is a weak, out-of-touch leader who never puts Canada first. He had 3 passports up until not long ago. He moved his headquarters out of Canada to New York City. While supporting carbon taxes here, he invested in American coal. While opposing pipelines here, he profited off of foreign pipelines. He continues to have those foreign conflicts, which will prevent him from doing what's right for Canada. Just yesterday, we saw those conflicts play out when he refused to remove Paul Chang, a Liberal candidate who had said that a Canadian Conservative candidate should be turned over on a bounty to the Chinese government that wants to imprison or possibly even kill him because he is a political dissident. Mr. Carney said that Mr. Chang could stay on as a candidate. It wasn't until midnight, when we found out the police were involved, because it is a potential criminal offense, that the candidate stepped aside himself, not being pushed out by Carney, but because he decided on his own. Mr. Carney will never put our country first. He will always put himself first. And that is the choice in this election. After the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb, do the Liberals deserve a 4th term in power? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change? A change that means axing taxes, building homes, unleashing our resource jobs, and bringing home production so we can stand up to Trump from a position of strength. And most of all, to bring home the Canadian promise that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful home, on a safe street, protected by brave troops under a proud flag. Let's bring it home. Thank you. Force.
In English, please.
Well, thank you very much for your question. The question was, will I like Donald Trump to stop tariffing Canada? Yes, absolutely. I'd love nothing more than to see that, the end to this tariff chaos, which is hurting businesses and workers on both sides of the border. He says he has his grievances with us. Well, we have our grievances with them. So why don't we sort them out without attacking each other's economies? As long as he does tariff us, we have to counter tariff in order to deter economic aggression and keep our industries alive. But it's clear that Mr. Trump continues to want to have Mark Carney as Prime Minister. Why is that? Why does he keep saying he wants Carney as Prime Minister of Canada? Well, because Carney will continue the Liberal policy of economic weakness, of blocking resources, taxing away our jobs, pushing $500 billion of investment out of our country to the U.S. That will only weaken Canada and strengthen Trump's hand. What he doesn't want is a strong leader who will put Canada first for a change by axing taxes, greenlighting resource projects, building homes, training up 350,000 tradespeople to bring home our jobs and confront Trump from a position of economic strength.
Thank you. That concludes today's press conference.
Thank you very much.